Just minutes ago, a revelation reportedly sent shockwaves through the royal household. According to palace insiders, King Charles has learned that Princess Anne has quietly secured control over the late Queen's most private papers. Documents believed to contain decades of personal correspondence, royal decisions, and deeply guarded family secrets. The discovery has triggered immediate concern inside palace walls, because those papers may hold truths capable of rewriting royal history. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. What began as a quiet administrative move inside the palace quickly transformed into one of the most dramatic internal developments the monarchy has faced since the passing of Queen Elizabeth. According to those familiar with the situation, Princess Anne acted with remarkable speed and precision, arranging for the Queen's private archive to be secured under strict control before many within the royal household fully realized what was happening. These were not ordinary records or ceremonial documents. The archive reportedly includes personal letters, handwritten reflections, confidential memoranda, and decades of private communications that reveal the Queen's most intimate perspective on the family she led and the institution she protected. Inside palace corridors, the news spread rapidly. Staff members who had long served the Queen reportedly understood immediately how sensitive these papers could be. For 70 years, Elizabeth had observed world leaders, political crises, family tensions, and royal transformations from a position unlike any other. She witnessed moments of triumph and moments of quiet heartbreak. If her personal writings captured even a fraction of those reflections, they could illuminate parts of royal history that have never been publicly understood. Yet what truly startled insiders was not simply the existence of the papers, it was the discovery that Princess Anne had already placed them under tight restriction. By the time senior advisors realized the scale of the archive, access had reportedly been limited and secured through careful legal and archival procedures. The move appeared deliberate, calculated, and executed with the kind of quiet determination that has long defined Anne's approach to royal duty. For King Charles, the revelation reportedly arrived unexpectedly. While the Queen's private writings naturally hold deep historical importance, they also carry profound personal meaning. These were the reflections of his mother, observations written during the decades when he himself was preparing to inherit the crown. Learning that the archive had already been locked down before he had fully reviewed it reportedly left the palace in a state of uneasy curiosity. Questions began circulating almost immediately. Why had Anne acted so quickly? What exactly might be contained inside those carefully preserved pages? And perhaps most importantly, what stories about the royal family might be waiting inside documents that were never meant for public eyes? Royal advisors, historians, and senior staff all appeared to recognize the same possibility, that the Queen's private archive could contain observations about some of the monarchy's most delicate chapters, letters between family members, reflections on difficult decisions, personal impressions of moments that shaped the institution itself. If such material exists, its significance would extend far beyond palace walls. Within hours, whispers reportedly spread through the royal household, suggesting that some documents might reference multiple senior royals and pivotal moments in modern royal history. Whether those whispers are accurate remains uncertain, but the mere possibility has created an atmosphere of quiet tension, because inside those locked papers could be the Queen's most honest voice, unfiltered, private, and written for no audience but herself. And if Princess Anne believed those words required immediate protection, it raises an even larger question about what she may have discovered while securing them. But to understand why Princess Anne would move so decisively to secure those documents, we need to look at the extraordinary importance of the Queen's private papers themselves. For 70 years, Queen Elizabeth quietly recorded the private side of the monarchy, moments never meant for public view. Her personal papers are rumoured to contain reflections on world leaders, internal royal disagreements, and emotional notes about the family she led for decades. To historians, The Queen's archive is not just a collection of documents. It may be the most intimate record of modern royal power ever created. Behind the public image of calm duty and unwavering composure, Queen Elizabeth lived through some of the most turbulent decades the monarchy had ever faced. Political upheavals, global conflicts, constitutional debates, and deeply personal family struggles unfolded around her year after year. Yet throughout it all, she reportedly maintained a quiet habit, recording thoughts, correspondence, and reflections that were never intended to be shared with the outside world. These writings were not speeches crafted for the public stage. They were private impressions captured in moments of reflection, written with a candor few people ever witnessed. For historians and royal scholars, the existence of such an archive represents something extraordinary. Few monarchs in modern history ruled for as long as Elizabeth did, and even fewer left behind detailed personal records of the world they navigated. Inside those papers could be observations about global leaders who shaped the 20th and 21st centuries, letters exchanged during moments of diplomatic tension, personal reflections written after meetings that altered the course of international relationships. The archive may capture a side of world history seen only through the Queen's own quiet perspective. Yet the documents are believed to extend far beyond diplomacy and state affairs. Insiders suggest that the Queen also wrote about the monarchy itself, its triumphs, its crises, and its most difficult moments. Over 7 decades, she witnessed the evolution of the royal family from a post-war institution struggling to modernize into a globally recognized symbol navigating relentless media scrutiny. Through it all, she remained the constant figure at its center. If her diaries captured her thoughts during those turning points, they could reveal the emotional weight of decisions that the public only saw from a distance. There are also whispers that the Queen's personal archive contains deeply private reflections about family tensions that were never publicly addressed. The monarchy has endured moments of intense personal conflict, fractures between generations, disagreements over the direction of the institution, and emotional trials that played out under the gaze of the world. While the Queen rarely spoke publicly about those struggles, her private writings may have offered a place where honesty replaced diplomacy. Such documents are usually protected by strict royal protocol. Monarchs' personal papers are not simply historical artifacts, they are deeply sensitive records tied to both family privacy and national legacy. Access is typically limited, carefully managed, and often delayed for decades before historians can even begin to study them. These rules exist precisely because such writings may contain unfiltered thoughts, candid observations, and deeply personal insights that were never intended for immediate public scrutiny. That is why the Queen's archive is already being described as priceless historical material. For future generations, it may represent the closest glimpse anyone will ever have into the mind of a monarch who guided the crown through extraordinary change. It could illuminate how decisions were made, how conflicts were understood, and how the Queen herself interpreted the immense responsibilities she carried throughout her reign. Yet alongside that historical fascination, another emotion has begun to grow: curiosity. Because if the papers truly contain reflections as personal and revealing as many believe, the question naturally arises: what might Princess Anne have encountered when she began reviewing them? And if those pages contained even a hint of sensitive revelations about the royal family, it might explain why she acted with such speed and determination to secure them. Yet insiders say the real shock was not the existence of the papers, but Princess Anne's sudden decision to secure them. Princess Anne has long been known as one of the most disciplined and discreet figures in the royal family. She rarely seeks attention and almost never steps into controversy. That is precisely why insiders say her decision to quietly lock down the Queen's private papers has left many inside the palace stunned. Because if Anne felt compelled to act so quickly, some believe she may have seen something deeply significant. In the days following Queen Elizabeth's passing, the palace was already navigating an extraordinary period of transition. Ceremonies were unfolding, Constitutional responsibilities were shifting, and the weight of an entire era settling into history. Amid that atmosphere of solemn duty and quiet urgency, Princess Anne reportedly moved with a level of focus that caught even seasoned royal staff by surprise. According to insiders familiar with the process, she began organizing the secure transfer of the Queen's personal archive almost immediately, ensuring that every document, letter, and private record was carefully gathered and protected before questions about access could even begin to circulate. This was not a casual administrative task. The Queen's private papers represent decades of royal history written in her own hand or preserved through her most trusted correspondence. Anne reportedly worked closely with legal advisors and archival experts to ensure the documents were placed under strict control. Protective measures were arranged swiftly, with clear restrictions defining who could review the archive and under what circumstances. By the time many within the palace realized the scale of what had been secured, the process had already been completed. For palace aides who have worked alongside Anne for years, the speed of her actions was striking, but not entirely surprising. She has built her reputation on quiet discipline and unwavering loyalty to the institution. Unlike other members of the royal family who sometimes find themselves drawn into public narratives, Anne has always operated with a singular focus on duty. Her commitment to protecting the monarchy's stability has often placed her in the role of a steady guardian during moments of uncertainty. Yet this particular decision carried a deeper weight. The Queen's archive is not simply a historical collection, it is a personal window into the mind of the monarch who guided the crown for 7 decades. If those papers contain candid reflections or sensitive correspondence, their premature exposure could ignite controversies capable of reshaping how the monarchy's past is understood. Some insiders believe Anne recognized that risk immediately and acted before curiosity inside or outside the palace could grow. That possibility has fueled speculation about whether Anne reviewed at least portions of the archive before securing it. No official confirmation has ever surfaced, and those close to the process remain careful with their words. But whispers inside royal circles suggest the princess may have encountered passages that underscored just how delicate the material truly is. Letters describing family tensions, observations about critical royal decisions, or reflections written during moments of profound personal strain. All of these possibilities have quietly entered palace conversations. The rumors themselves have only deepened the sense of intrigue surrounding Anne's actions. If even a handful of documents touched upon controversial moments in modern royal history, the implications could stretch far beyond private family memory. Historians might one day see them as defining records of how the monarchy navigated its most difficult chapters. For now, however, those pages remain locked away, their contents known only to a very small circle of trusted guardians. Inside the palace, that secrecy has begun to create a subtle shift in atmosphere. Staff members who once assumed the archive would eventually pass into Charles's hands are now quietly reconsidering how the situation may unfold. Because the Queen's private voice, captured across decades of letters and notes, now rests behind restrictions placed by the daughter who knew her perhaps better than anyone. And when Charles reportedly realized the archive had already been secured, the situation inside the palace began to shift rapidly. For King Charles, the news reportedly arrived like a quiet thunderclap. The Queen's private papers are not only part of the monarchy's historical record, they are deeply personal reflections from his own mother. Learning that access to them had been restricted without his involvement reportedly left the king facing an uncomfortable question. Why had Princess Anne moved so decisively before informing him? Inside the palace, the realization reportedly unfolded slowly at first. Conversations among senior staff began circulating quietly, hinting that the Queen's private archive had already been secured and placed under controlled protection. For a moment, the news seemed almost administrative, a procedural step taken to preserve historical material. But as the details became clearer, the deeper implications began to settle over the royal household. This was not simply an archive being catalogued. It was the private voice of the monarch who had guided Britain for 70 years, now placed beyond immediate reach. For Charles, the significance was deeply personal. These writings were not distant historical artifacts. They were the reflections of the woman who had been both queen and mother throughout his entire life. Within those pages might exist memories of family moments, observations about the challenges he faced as heir, and perhaps even candid thoughts about the path he would eventually take as king. The idea that such intimate reflections had already been secured, without his direct involvement, reportedly stirred a mixture of curiosity, surprise, and quiet unease. Advisors close to the king were quick to explain the legal and archival framework surrounding royal documents. Monarchs' personal writings often carry layers of protection designed to preserve both family privacy and historical integrity. Protocol dictates that such materials must be handled carefully, with legal oversight ensuring they are not misinterpreted, prematurely released, or used in ways that could damage the institution. In that sense, Anne's actions could be viewed as a precaution, an effort to protect the Queen's legacy before speculation or unauthorized access could begin. Yet the emotional dimension of the situation remained impossible to ignore. For Charles, these documents represent more than constitutional history. They may contain glimpses into his mother's most private thoughts during moments that shaped both his life and the monarchy itself. Decisions made during national crises. Reflections written after difficult family events. Quiet words recorded during years when the crown faced immense pressure from changing public expectations. The possibility that those reflections exist somewhere within the sealed archive carries a powerful emotional weight. At the same time, the king must also think as the guardian of the institution his mother spent a lifetime protecting. Curiosity must be balanced with caution. Accessing such papers too quickly, or allowing them to become a source of speculation, could risk unleashing narratives the monarchy would struggle to contain. Palace advisors reportedly understand this tension well. They have described the situation as delicate, requiring patience and discretion rather than sudden action. Within palace corridors, the atmosphere reportedly reflects that careful balance. Staff members speak quietly about the archive, aware that its contents may one day shape how historians interpret the Queen's reign. Yet for now, the documents remain shielded from immediate scrutiny, their pages resting in silence behind the restrictions that Princess Anne helped establish. That silence, however, has only intensified the intrigue, because whenever something so significant is placed beyond view, the human instinct to wonder becomes impossible to suppress. What exactly did the Queen choose to record across the decades? Which events moved her enough to capture them in writing? And perhaps most intriguingly, which family moments might have found their way into those private reflections? As those questions began to circulate among the few insiders aware of the archive's significance, the story slowly deepened. The focus shifted from the act of securing the papers to the possibility of what they might contain. But as insiders quietly began discussing the contents of the archive, a deeper mystery started to emerge. Rumors about the Queen's private papers have circulated for decades, but insiders now suggest the collection may contain far more than historians ever imagined. Letters never published, reflections never shared, observations about some of the most dramatic moments in royal history. If even a fraction of those documents became public, they could illuminate secrets that the monarchy has carefully guarded for generations. For years, royal historians have quietly speculated about what Queen Elizabeth might have recorded in the privacy of her personal archive, a monarch who ruled longer than any British sovereign before her inevitably witnessed moments that reshaped both the monarchy and the world itself. Wars ended. Governments rose and fell. Alliances shifted. But within the palace, equally profound dramas unfolded behind closed doors. Family tensions, institutional crises, and decisions that carried enormous consequences for the future of the crown. If the Queen captured her private thoughts during those moments, the pages she left behind could hold a remarkably candid record of royal history. Among the most persistent whispers surrounding the archive, are suggestions that some letters may touch upon the monarchy's most emotionally charged chapters. The relationships between Charles, Diana, and Camilla transformed the royal narrative for an entire generation. Publicly, those events unfolded through interviews, headlines, and carefully managed statements. Yet the Queen herself stood quietly at the center of it all, watching the turmoil affect both the institution she served and the family she loved. If she recorded her thoughts during those years, perhaps in letters, perhaps in personal notes, they could offer a perspective that the world has never truly heard. Beyond those deeply personal moments, the Queen also presided over several internal crises that tested the resilience of the monarchy. There were periods when public support wavered, when the royal family faced intense criticism, and when difficult decisions had to be made about how the institution should evolve. During such moments, the Queen rarely expressed her personal opinions publicly. Her role required restraint and neutrality, but private writings may have provided the space where those unspoken reflections were finally recorded. The archive may also contain correspondence with global leaders that never reached public view. Over 70 years, Queen Elizabeth met presidents, prime ministers, and heads of state from every corner of the world. Many of those relationships extended beyond formal diplomacy into quiet personal exchanges. Letters written after pivotal meetings or during international crises could reveal how the Queen interpreted the shifting balance of global power and how the monarchy positioned itself within that changing landscape. Equally intriguing are suggestions that the Queen may have written about the future of the crown itself. As the longest-serving monarch in British history, she watched the institution transform under the pressure of modern expectations. The rise of global media, the growing demand for transparency, and the complex dynamics of royal succession all created challenges that previous generations had never faced. If Elizabeth recorded her thoughts about how the monarchy should adapt, those reflections could carry enormous significance for the generations that follow. Yet historians remain cautious. Royal archives often contain moments of profound honesty, but they are also easily misunderstood when removed from the context in which they were written. A private observation captured during a moment of frustration could appear dramatically different when examined decades later. For that reason, experts emphasize the importance of patience and careful interpretation before drawing conclusions about what the Queen may have left behind. Inside the palace, however, one priority appears clear: the archive must remain secure. Palace officials reportedly understand that even a small fragment of such material, if leaked prematurely, could ignite headlines powerful enough to overshadow the Queen's carefully preserved legacy. Protecting those writings is therefore not only a matter of privacy but also of safeguarding how the Queen's reign will ultimately be remembered. Which brings the story back to Princess Anne's decisive action. Because if even a portion of these rumoured documents truly exists, then the urgency with which she secured the archive begins to make far more sense. What initially appeared to be a quiet administrative decision may in fact reflect a deeper awareness of just how sensitive those pages might be. And if those papers truly contain such revelations, Princess Anne's decision to secure them begins to look less surprising and far more strategic. Princess Anne has always been known as the royal family's most quietly formidable defender. Loyal to the crown above all else, she has spent decades protecting the institution from scandal and instability. Those who know her say she rarely acts impulsively, which is why many insiders now believe her decision to lock down the Queen's papers may have been driven by a powerful sense of responsibility. From the beginning of her public life, Anne carried herself with a kind of unwavering discipline that set her apart even within a family defined by duty. While others occasionally found themselves drawn into the glare of public drama, Anne built a reputation for something different: steadiness, resilience, and an almost stubborn commitment to the responsibilities she inherited from her mother. Over decades of royal service, she became known not for grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but for quiet determination and relentless work behind the scenes. That determination was shaped largely by her relationship with Queen Elizabeth II. Among all the Queen's children, Anne was often described as the one who understood her most instinctively. She shared her mother's sense of duty, her reserved temperament, and her belief that the monarchy's survival depended on restraint rather than spectacle. Their connection was built not only on family bonds, but on a shared understanding of the crown's weight, a responsibility that demanded loyalty even when the personal cost was high. Throughout the years, Anne witnessed the monarchy navigate moments of extraordinary pressure. Scandals erupted, marriages fractured. Public opinion shifted dramatically as modern media began dissecting every aspect of royal life. Through it all, she remained one of the institution's most reliable defenders, rarely commenting publicly, but consistently supporting the stability of the crown through her actions. Those who have worked with her inside the palace often describe her as someone who places the institution above personal convenience or sentiment. That reputation helps explain why her decision regarding the Queen's private archive has resonated so strongly within royal circles. If Anne believed those papers required immediate protection, many insiders assume she must have seen the potential risks with absolute clarity. Private reflections written by a monarch over 70 years could easily be misunderstood if revealed too quickly. A single passage taken out of context might ignite speculation capable of overshadowing the Queen's legacy. Protecting those documents, in Anne's view, may simply have been another extension of the duty she has practiced her entire life. Royal aides have quietly echoed that interpretation. Several have described Anne as fiercely protective not only of the monarchy's reputation, but also of the family's privacy. The Queen's writings, after all, were never intended for immediate public consumption. They were the personal thoughts of a monarch who spent decades carefully separating her public role from her private emotions. Ensuring those reflections are handled with caution could be seen as a final act of respect toward the woman who carried the crown for most of a century. Within the palace, Anne's actions have also reinforced her standing as a trusted guardian of royal tradition. Staff members who have watched her career unfold often point to her remarkable consistency, decades of service without the dramatic controversies that sometimes surround royal life. That steadiness has quietly earned her the respect of advisors and officials who rely on her instinct for preserving institutional stability. At the same time, speculation continues to grow that Anne's decision may also be about safeguarding something even more delicate: the Queen's legacy itself. If the papers contain candid reflections on family events or sensitive moments in royal history, their premature exposure could reshape how those chapters are remembered. By placing the archive under careful protection, Anne may be ensuring that any future release occurs thoughtfully, with historical context rather than immediate sensationalism. But as the story surrounding the locked archive continues to circulate quietly among royal watchers and historians, curiosity has begun to move beyond the palace gates. Because once whispers of hidden documents begin to spread, they rarely remain contained for long. Yet outside palace walls, the existence of the locked archive was already beginning to attract attention. Royal reporters thrive on whispers, and this one began circulating faster than anyone expected. Journalists started hearing fragments of an unusual story: Princess Anne securing the Queen's private archive and restricting access, even from senior figures. At first, the rumours sounded impossible, but as more insiders confirmed pieces of the puzzle, a new royal mystery began taking shape. It began quietly, as many royal stories do. A single remark overheard in a newsroom, a cautious message exchanged between correspondents who have spent years covering the monarchy. At first, the suggestion sounded almost unbelievable that the Queen's personal archive had been swiftly secured under Princess Anne's authority, with strict restrictions placed on who could view its contents. Yet within hours, those whispers began to echo through the tightly connected world of royal reporting, where even the smallest hint of internal movement can ignite intense curiosity. For journalists who follow the monarchy closely, the existence of the Queen's private papers had never been in doubt. What made this story different was the suddenness of the action surrounding them. Reports suggested the archive had not simply been catalogued for historical preservation, Instead, it had been deliberately placed under careful protection, with access tightly limited. The implication was clear. Something about those papers required extraordinary caution. Royal commentators soon began discussing the situation with growing intrigue. Some speculated that the move was simply part of a standard archival process, an orderly step taken to ensure the Queen's personal writings were handled responsibly. Others saw something far more dramatic unfolding. If Princess Anne had acted with such urgency, they wondered whether she might have encountered passages within the archive that carried potential consequences for the monarchy's public narrative. As the conversation spread beyond journalists into the wider public sphere, social media began amplifying the speculation. Royal watchers across the world debated what the locked archive might contain. Was it simply a collection of routine correspondence and ceremonial notes? Or could the papers include reflections on moments that had shaped the royal family's modern history? The lack of official clarification only intensified the curiosity. Historians, meanwhile, viewed the development through a different lens. For them, the Queen's personal archive represents an unparalleled historical treasure. A monarch who reigned for 7 decades inevitably witnessed events that reshaped nations and institutions alike. If Elizabeth documented her thoughts during those moments, the writings could offer an extraordinary glimpse into how she understood the pressures and responsibilities of the crown. The possibility that such material exists, yet remains sealed, has sparked intense academic interest. Inside palace communication offices, however, the response has reportedly been silence. No statements confirming the details. No explanations about how the archive is being managed. For those experienced in royal protocol, that silence itself carries meaning. The monarchy has long understood that sometimes the most effective way to manage speculation is simply to refuse to engage with it. But silence rarely diminishes fascination where royal secrets are concerned. If anything, the mystery surrounding the archive has only fueled public imagination. For generations, people have been drawn to the hidden side of royal life, the private emotions, the confidential conversations, the untold stories that exist beyond official ceremonies. The idea that the Queen herself left behind a record of those moments has captured attention far beyond the usual circles of royal observers. Experts in royal history have also begun debating how archives like these are typically handled. Traditionally, monarchs' personal writings are sealed for extended periods, sometimes decades, before historians are permitted to examine them. The goal is to protect both personal privacy and historical context. Yet even within that tradition, the swift lockdown of the Queen's papers has raised questions about whether something within the collection carries unusual sensitivity. As the story continues to circulate through media outlets and scholarly circles alike, one thing has become clear. The locked archive has transformed into a mystery that people cannot easily ignore. Curiosity about what lies within those pages is growing by the day, and with it comes a deeper sense that the documents may hold more than simple historical reflections. Yet insiders insist the real significance of the locked papers lies not in curiosity, but in what they may reveal about the monarchy's future. For the monarchy, history is never just about the past, it shapes the future. The Queen's private writings could offer rare insight into how she viewed the challenges facing the crown. And if those reflections remain hidden for decades, they may quietly influence how future generations interpret the monarchy's most critical decisions. Throughout British history, the private writings of monarchs have often become some of the most revealing historical records ever discovered. Long after public speeches fade and official announcements are archived, it is the private letters and personal reflections that allow historians to understand how a ruler truly saw the world around them. The thoughts written in solitude, unfiltered by advisors or public expectations, can illuminate the pressures, fears, and strategic decisions that shaped an entire era. If Queen Elizabeth left behind such reflections across the span of her 70-year reign, those pages may one day become among the most important historical documents of modern royal history. The potential significance of those writings extends far beyond simple curiosity. The monarchy has spent decades navigating the delicate balance between tradition and transformation. Public expectations have shifted dramatically. Media scrutiny has intensified. The very role of the crown within modern democratic society has evolved in ways previous generations could scarcely have imagined. If the Queen recorded her thoughts about those changes, the archive may reveal how she interpreted the monarchy's long struggle to remain both timeless and adaptable. For scholars studying the institution decades from now, such material could provide rare insight into how Elizabeth viewed the process of modernization itself. She witnessed the monarchy transform from a reserved and distant institution into one that increasingly engaged with the public through media and global visibility. Each adaptation required careful judgment. Too much change could risk undermining tradition. Too little could leave the institution appearing out of touch with the world it served. If the Queen documented her reflections on that balancing act, historians may eventually see her writings as a roadmap, explaining how the monarchy survived the pressures of the modern age. Equally compelling are the possibilities surrounding her thoughts on succession. Elizabeth lived long enough to see not only one generation preparing to inherit the crown, but two. She watched Charles spend decades as heir apparent while William gradually stepped forward as the future of the institution beyond him. Within the privacy of her own writing, the Queen may have reflected on how the monarchy should evolve under their leadership. Such insights, if they exist, could quietly shape how historians interpret the transition from one royal era to another. That possibility places Princess Anne's actions into an even broader perspective. By securing the archive and ensuring its protection, she may have done more than preserve a collection of historical papers. She may have safeguarded the Queen's final voice, a record of how the monarch who defined an era understood the future awaiting the crown. Protecting that voice requires patience. Historical context takes time to develop. Words written in one generation often carry meanings that only become fully clear in another. For King Charles, meanwhile, the presence of those sealed writings represents both a legacy and a responsibility. As he leads the monarchy into its next chapter, the quiet existence of his mother's reflections will remain somewhere in the background of history, waiting for the moment when they can finally be studied with the perspective that time provides. Until then, the archive remains a bridge between the past and the future, a reminder that the crown is not only an institution of the present, but a story continuously unfolding across generations. In that sense, the locked papers may symbolize something deeper than secrecy. They represent the monarchy's enduring ability to preserve its own history while preparing for what comes next. Each generation inherits not only the crown itself, but the lessons recorded by those who carried it before. But the final chapter of this story may not be written for many years. Some royal secrets disappear quietly into locked archives. Others wait patiently for historians to uncover them decades later. Princess Anne's decision to secure the Queen's private papers may one day be remembered as the moment when an extraordinary collection of royal history was placed beyond immediate reach, because hidden inside those pages could be the Queen's most honest reflections on the family, the crown, and the future she hoped to protect. For now, the archive rests in silence, carefully preserved, tightly protected, and shielded from immediate scrutiny. Such collections often remain sealed for many years, sometimes for entire generations, allowing emotions to settle and historical perspective to grow. By the time historians eventually examine them, the events they describe are no longer breaking news, but chapters of history ready to be understood with greater clarity. If the Queen's private papers follow that path, the world may not fully discover their contents until long after today's royal figures have themselves become part of the historical narrative. Yet the idea that those pages exist, written in the Queen's own voice, carries a powerful sense of anticipation. Elizabeth ruled through extraordinary decades of transformation. Empires evolved into modern partnerships. Technology reshaped communication and public life. The monarchy itself adapted to survive in a world that constantly questioned its relevance. Through it all, the Queen remained a steady figure at the center of the storm. If she recorded her reflections during those moments, her words could eventually provide one of the most revealing perspectives on the modern monarchy ever preserved. For historians of the future, such material would be invaluable. Speeches and official documents tell only part of the story. The true complexity of leadership often appears only in private writings, where doubt, reflection, and personal emotion are allowed to exist. Within the Queen's papers may lie insights into how she interpreted the pressures surrounding the crown. Her thoughts about family divisions, her hopes for the institution she dedicated her life to protecting. These reflections, if they emerge one day, could reshape how scholars understand the monarchy's most challenging moments. Until that day arrives, however, the archive remains guarded. And in that role, Princess Anne now appears as something more than simply the Queen's daughter. She has become the quiet custodian of her mother's legacy. By securing the papers, she ensured that the Queen's most personal voice would not be rushed into public interpretation. Instead, it will remain preserved until the time is right for historians to approach it with the patience and context such documents deserve. Meanwhile, King Charles continues to guide the monarchy into its next era. His reign unfolds under the shadow of immense historical continuity, following a sovereign whose presence shaped generations. The knowledge that his mother's private reflections remain locked away somewhere within the royal archives adds a subtle layer of intrigue to that transition. Somewhere in those sealed pages may be thoughts about the very future he is now responsible for leading. At the same time, the monarchy itself continues its long tradition of protecting the private boundaries of royal life. For centuries, the institution has survived not only through public ceremony, but through careful stewardship of its own history. Some records are revealed quickly. Others are allowed to rest quietly until time transforms them from personal reflections into historical evidence. Yet the mystery surrounding those papers will likely endure. The public fascination with royal secrets has always been powerful, and the idea that the Queen left behind a hidden record of her inner thoughts only deepens that curiosity. For now, those writings remain sealed, their pages untouched by the outside world, their stories waiting patiently in the shadows of history. Perhaps that is exactly how Elizabeth intended it. A final chapter written not for immediate headlines, but for the patient readers of another era, historians who will one day turn those pages and discover the quiet truths she chose to record. And if those locked papers truly contain the Queen's most private truths, one question will linger in royal history. What stories are waiting patiently inside the archive, unseen by the world? Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.